Hello, my friends. Let's start right away with the situation in the Sumy region. Russian forces continue the attacks here, but because the Ukrainian forces have pulled in a large number of reserves, the Russians are no longer able to advance further. And now, a very important detail has emerged. The Russians have begun breaking through from Russian territory into Ukraine near the village of Huiva. On the map, you can see that the Russians have already managed to push about 1 kilometer into the area around the village of Oleksandriya. However, if you look at the geolocation map, the territory that has come under Russian control appears to be much larger. Reportedly, the village of Oleksandriya itself is also now under Russian control, and here is what Russian sources are saying about it. Situation on the Sumy front. The border zone between Kursk and Sumy, south of Psel River, was cleared. The Russian army was able to consolidate after 2 weeks of operations and reached the outskirts of Myropillya. As you can see, they are openly claiming that they've already reached the outskirts of Myropillya. So what's happening is that Ukrainian forces have stopped them in one direction, and now the Russians are trying to break through in a completely different one. It's possible that later they'll attempt to move toward the city of Sumy from two directions. But even if they don't advance on Sumy itself, they'll likely try to create a buffer zone all along the border with Russia and seize any settlements they can. Overall, fighting is still ongoing and the situation remains tense. On the Kharkiv front, things are currently more stable. No major activity has been observed, and the front line hasn't changed. However, in Vovchansk, fighting continues, and attacks have once again resumed on the village of Starytsia. But the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks, and there have been no changes in the past 24 hours. In the Dvorichna direction, the Russians are storming the village of Dovhenka and are also trying to break through near Kamianka. However, for now, Ukrainian forces are managing to repel all attacks and the front line hasn't changed over the past 24 hours. In the Kupiansk direction, there have been no new assault operations and the front line remains stable. That said, Russian forces continue to carry out active strikes using FPV drones, artillery, and even missiles. Their goal here seems to be to weaken the Ukrainian forces as much as possible in preparation for future advances. But as of today, there is no significant offensive activity. In the Borova area, now Russian forces are storming the villages of Kopanki and Novoyegorivka. After breaking through toward Novoplatonivka, no new attacks have been recorded in this direction. The Russians continue preparing for new assaults. In the Lyman direction, the situation is looking very bad. Russian troops are making gains and fighting is already underway near the village of Serednya. They are also pushing through around Kharkivka and launching assaults on Zelena Dolina, Olgivka, and Dvorichna. So far, there are no confirmed changes to the front line, but Russian activity is extremely high. As a result, Ukrainian forces are occasionally forced to retreat to more advantageous positions. In the Siversk direction, Russian forces are storming Serebryanka and pushing beyond Grigorivka. They essentially are trying to move across the fields toward Siversk. However, Ukrainian forces have withdrawn to more advantageous positions and are now holding the line successfully. Ukrainian fighters report that the Russians are conducting motorcycle assault raids, which are being effectively destroyed. Siversk front. The Russians are launching motorcycle raids to try and reach the outskirts of Serebryanka. Our fighters from the Phoenix unit are tracking their movement, taking out the motorcycles with FPV drones, and finishing off the infantry with aerial drops. Whatever the Russians draw on their maps is just exaggerated heroism to influence their domestic audience. Based on visual control, the Russians haven't managed to secure any ground and, as usual, were mercilessly wiped out. In the Chasiv Yar direction, Russian forces are attacking Novomarkove and battles are ongoing inside the village. Russians claim they've now reached the village of Shevchenko near Chasiv Yar. Battle for Chasiv Yar. The Russian army has made significant gains, reportedly storming the city center. The Russians have advanced quite a bit in Chasiv Yar, Ukrainian military analysts acknowledge. The area of advance is about 30 hectares, they write. Russian troops have reportedly advanced deep into the central part of Chasiv Yar and are continuing to clear the area of high-rise buildings south of Chasiv Yar refractory plant and in the Shevchenko district. Fighting is also ongoing near the village of Stupochka. So far, there is no confirmed evidence of this, so we're still waiting. In the Konstantinivka direction, Russian forces continue trying to break through toward Bila Hora. They're attacking near Kurdyumivka and storming Sherbinivka, Oleksandro Kalinove, Yablonivka, and Rusin Yar. Despite this high level of activity, there have been no changes on the front line over the past 24 hours. Ukrainian forces are successfully holding the defense. In the Pokrovsk direction, Russian troops are pushing near Malynivka, storming Myropillya and the village of Promeny, and attempting to advance through the fields near Mykolaiivka. Intense fighting is ongoing for Lysivka. Russian forces are also pushing toward the outskirts of Pokrovsk and storming Udachne and Novosergiyevka. The situation here is extremely difficult. The number of shelling remains very high, but the Ukrainian forces are still holding their positions and haven't retreated, and there have been no new changes in the past 24 hours. In the Novopavlivka direction. Unfortunately, Russian forces have already begun advancing through the fields toward the village of Novopavlivka and are attempting to establish a foothold there. As a result, fighting is now essentially taking place in Dnipropetrovsk region, and the number of shelling in this area continues to rise each day. Battles are ongoing near Oleksiyevka, and the Russians are storming Zelený Kut and Myrne. They're making an active push forward with every assault accompanied by heavy shelling. For now, the front line hasn't shifted in the past 24 hours, but Russian activity is at its peak. In the area around Velika Novosilka, Russian troops are storming the villages of Shevchenko and Vilna Pole. However, there have been no major changes on the ground, and Ukrainian forces have so far been able to repel all attacks. In the Gulay Pole direction, Russian forces have currently reduced the activity. They are carrying out shelling without launching offensive operations. All previous attacks have failed to result in a major breakthrough, and the situation remains unchanged for now. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, Russian troops are assaulting Novoandriivka and conducting strikes across the entire frontline area using both artillery and FPV drones. However, there is no significant offensive activity at the moment, and the frontline remains stable. In the Kherson direction, Russian forces continue shelling the right bank. However, no new attacks on the islands have been recorded, and the situation has remained stable over the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Donald Trump continues to defend Russia. We have a very talented team. You do too, and they work well together. I'm looking forward to that. G7 used to be G8. Obama and Trudeau didn't want Russia at the table. That was a mistake. There wouldn't be a war if Russia were there, or if I were president 4 years ago. It used to be the G8, then maybe 8, 9 years ago. It changed. Something like that, yeah. They kicked Russia out, which I thought was a huge mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics yet, I spoke out strongly about it. The mistakes is that people talk too much about Russia, but Russia isn't at the table. That makes things harder. But there wouldn't be a war. Aside from that, I think we'll accomplish a lot. I hope so. The main focus will be trade with Canada. I'm confident we'll reach a deal. As the war in Ukraine drags on with negotiations leading nowhere, NATO countries are now preparing for a possible direct conflict with Russia. The question is not if Russia will attack, it's when, said Ragnar Vaikimets, Deputy Director General of Estonia's Health Board. In Estonia, ambulance crews are being equipped with bulletproof vests and satellite communications, while hospitals are installing generators. In Poland, medical sector security has become a national defense priority. In Lithuania, Santaros Clinics is building underground shelters, helipads, and autonomous power and water systems. Eastern European countries are also converting basements into operating rooms and purchasing mobile medical units. Some doctors are even traveling to Ukraine to gain real world experience in wartime medicine. Today, Trump also addressed Iran, warning that a deal must be reached immediately. We've heard from the Iranians they want to talk, but they should have done it earlier. I had 60 days. On day 61, I said, no deal. They need to make a deal. It's painful for both sides, but Iran won't win. They must talk now before it's too late. Meanwhile, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dismissed any interest in negotiations with Iran. Israel isn't interested in talks, Netanyahu said, adding that he wouldn't rule out the assassination of Iran's supreme leader. It wouldn't escalate the conflict, it would end it, he said, referencing past reports that Trump rejected Israel's plan to eliminate Ali Khamenei due to fears of escalation. Netanyahu insists Iran is only using negotiations as cover to continue developing nuclear weapons. And he's likely right. Just like Russia, Iran won't stop. They aim to delay the war long enough to finish building their nukes and then strike Israel. That much is obvious. The war continues. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.